defense medical experts and their lies. We're damn good too. But you can't be any geek off the street. You gotta be handy with the cross-exam if you know what I mean. Earn your keep. Regulators! Mount up. It was a litigation fight. A fully packed room. Kev Dog is here to crush. Ready to entomb some defense MD. His opinion's all junk. He knows he can't hide. Scared to the bone. Just hit the west side of Hermosa Beach. Defense about to learn. Wrath of SLG. Send the Army report. Opinions all weak. All you insurance doc hacks are about to see. So I took the report and went right through it. I grabbed the mic and said, let's do this. You seen the MRIs and said nothing's up. Yet I know lying is how you make your bucks. This doc is a sleaze and also a perv. Straight face at the disc, never hit the nerve.
The disc never hit the nerve.
Docs, this classic trick. Paid to say the disc is normal and shouldn't be fixed. I'm getting jacked, I'm breaking myself. I need to expose this crooked doctor's wealth. Insurance every time, surely the next. Paid millions to lie about injuries of either sex. My client's diagnosed, doc's acting a clown. Says it's all a sprain and lose a few pounds. Claims no nerve compression when the doc was around. Even though the pain radiates all the way down. He says it's in his head, some out-of-form sound. Even through the Mullinger theory down. This theory won't fly, let me contemplate.
Yeah.
My client got the surgery and now
Wow. So there are two more verses. There are two more verses of Kev Dog's regulator. That is Kevin O'Hare at our office, our associate. He's a law clerk. He's been here with us over 2 years as a lawyer.
He's very passionate.
Oh, yeah.
He came up with No Sleep Till Justice as well. That's his motto.
But he wrote, that's his lyrics. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this edition of the Justice Team podcast. We have some very special guests here today. And the reason we played regulators is we have some consumer advocate regulators here with us today. The first person I would like to introduce is actually our bartender, Marada Behan. Say hello.
Hey, great to be here for another episode. I'm excited.
And what are we serving here today, Marada?
So we got a couple of drinks around today. So the first one is a special select single barrel Jack Daniels that was crafted just for the Simon Law Group. Mm-hmm. And then we have another cocktail out there, which is a artesian sparkling water with an organic lime infusion. So cheers to everyone.
So we had to have some mocktails because we have Courtney Rowley here. Courtney, say hello.
Good morning.
And Courtney, why are we having a mocktail today?
Well, because it's not classy to drink Jack Daniels with a baby in your belly.
Well, congratulations, Nick and Courtney. So I want to start talking to you a little bit about some work-life balance between you and Nick. So for those of our guests that don't know, we have Nick and Courtney Rowley here today, and both national well-esteemed trial lawyers. I mean, Nick's won Trial Lawyer of the Year, I think, everywhere. He's had. Nick, how many verdicts in how many different states do you think you've had?
Half the states across the country.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to trial, and a lot of those cases settled. Some went to verdict. I have 149 jury trials. The next one will be 150.
Wow!
And I've lost cases too. I don't win them all.
And how old are you, Nick?
41.
41. And so this baby on the way, how many does that make for Mr. Nick Rowley?
11. And it's a little girl.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So how do you manage having a family of what to be 11, trying dozens of cases every year all over the country, and still having this happy marriage that you and Courtney have and this great family life that we see on Instagram? If they don't follow you, it is at Jury Trial Lawyer Instagram, right?
It is.
So
I
tell
saw
us.
a Bobcat yesterday.
What was that Bobcat doing on your Instagram?
I almost stepped on it. Oh. He was big, probably about 60, 70 pounds. He was huge. And I was going on a run. We lived between Ojai and Iowa, and then Iowa's our base where we fly around the country and try cases in other states in the Midwest and the East Coast. And then California is where we're at when we're trying cases on the West Coast. So we're in our Ojai house, and usually in the morning we get up and we do something healthy. So we go on a run, we go on a walk, we play with the kids.
Closet sex.
Yeah. Do you have life insurance, right?
Oh, yeah. A lot. So as I'm running, come around, and I'm just about to finish the run, and I'm cutting across this empty lot to go to the house, and there's this mound. I come around the mound, and all of a sudden, there's this like big, growl and roar.
It was not Mara Fiore, was it?
It was not Morrow, and it wasn't a hiss. It was
Morrow
a
hisses.
deep growl. And I, ran another 10 steps, and I looked back, and there's this Bobcat.
Not the guy from Police Academy, right?
No. This is the real deal.
Okay.
And I mean, I'm kind of shaking a bit, and then because of the growl, it scared me. I'm like, oh, he ain't that big, So got out my phone, took a little video, and that's what you all saw.
So then if you can give some advice to our listeners that have, people that are power couples, people that, they work hard together, they have their businesses, their passions, and they have families that they take care of. Like, what is your advice? Courtney, what do you guys do that you would recommend to our listeners, and how do you find that balance?
Well, I don't know that balance is actually something that exists, right? Like it's something to create a little bit more pressure on ourselves on top of all the other ones we've already put. But we take care of ourselves, and we do it kind of fiercely. When we hit that wall where things are getting a little out of hand or a little crazy, or we feel like we miss the kids or we miss each other, we stop it all. And sometimes we burn it all to the ground.
Wow.
In honor of serving the marriage, the relationship, the family. So
and
that's
you guys
what's
travel
first.
a lot together too.
Yeah,
right?
we're always
we do.
together.
We work hard, but we live soft. We really do.
You're in the two houses. I was wondering that, like how Iowa, Ohio. How do you do that?
Oh, we don't believe in education. We're just
They're raised on the prairie with the Wildcats.
Yeah, we're probably gonna do a blend of homeschooling with our littlest ones, because we do travel a lot. Yeah. But when we're not in trial in front of a jury, we are with our kids.
Yeah,
we're
I
with
see
our
you
family.
guys all over the country, making wrestling matches and all that. And Iowa, next day you're in Tennessee trying a case. How are you able to pull that off?
I just do it. I just do it. And I put my heart, and Courtney puts her heart into whatever it is that we're doing. Focus on living in the moment, really, living in the moment. And when you're done with trial, spend time with your family. You do it. You live a beautiful life with your family and your baby. It's really great. The thing is if you spend 90 hours a week in an office grinding it out, you're not going to have the time to do a jury trial. You're not going to have the time to spend with your family. And nowadays, it used to be that's the only way you could work and get stuff done. Well, nowadays, you work from your computer anywhere, work from your phone. So virtually we can be anywhere. When it comes to depositions and court appearances, we can make appearances all over the country, over our phone or with
I think we've been a big fan of doing
Vimeo,
the remote video depositions.
Yes,
absolutely.
And for some reason, I find that when you have a witness that's streaming live, they tend to want to answer questions more succinctly and quickly.
Absolutely.
Because of the drag. I don't know what it is, but I just feel like I found that.
Well, we're on a podcast right now. Terry Gross is one of the most famous NPR interviewers, and she hasn't done an in-person interview. And I was listening to an interview with her in like 30 years, because she says that she gets more intimate content having that distance and feeling comfortable being where she is asking those questions.
Wow. Well, if we can't virtually drink together, so
We do it all the time.
we do, yeah. Brandon, we actually do remote drinking. It's weird. I think it's the Simon thing. So the last guest we have here, I'm skipping Brandon Simon. He's a staple.
I'm just hanging out.
Just hanging out. That's not my voice twice. It's actually a different human. And if you're watching on
It's actually a
YouTube
hologram.
It does not look like a different human. None of you Simon boys look you. You are clones of one another.
I don't know. Like, we traced our family tree, and it was a straight line at one point.
Yeah. And your dad's big smile. You guys.
So our last guest, a very special guest, is Jamie Court of Consumer Watchdog. And if you don't know Jamie, you need to know him, because he's the one that really protects our rights to civil liberties in California, and he's done it nationwide. We had a little bit of delay getting on today because he's taken calls from senators and governors, and has a meeting right after that with one of the two. But Jamie, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about what Consumer Watchdog does? I know you have a big event coming up, the Rage for Justice, honoring Ricardo Echeverria, and kind of some stuff that's on the forefront.
Well, we try to be a voice for people who don't have it in a world where special interests dominate, government and discourse and the media and the courts too often. So our motto is expose, confront, change, and that's what we try to do it. We do it on issues from healthcare to insurance to privacy to gas prices. I was just talking about, so the gas prices are $1 too high in California. We're trying to figure out with the governor what to do about them. So it is a long day, and it is an organization that's been around since 1985. We started with Prop 103, which was an insurance reform battle, at the ballot box. That was the first major David versus Goliath battle for the public here. We found, the insurance companies were overcharging consumers. They were charging them based on where they live, not how they drive. And at the same time, the insurance companies wanted to take more rights and create a different type of automobile system here, a no-fault automobile system. So there was a clash at the ballot, and the good guys won. The author of the ballot measure was the guy who founded Consumer Watchdog, Harvey Rosenfield.
And how long have you been with Consumer Watchdog?
I fought on Prop 103 in college. Wow. I was canvassing door to door. After that, I was a community organizer, a homeless advocate, and Harvey and I teamed up again in '94 and created what is the modern Consumer Watchdog. Back then, it was a group called Voter Revolt to Cut Insurance Rates, and there was the same not-for-profit that created the ballot measure. And we went after HMO reform, and we got some HMO reform rights in the '90s. We helped get the best parts of Obamacare in the 2000s. We've fought on a lot of different fronts.
Well, let me ask you. I mean, if you give our listeners a snapshot as to dollar for dollar what you're fighting against when you're doing these things.
Well, let me go back to '88 because the David versus Goliath part of the story is the insurance companies spent $80 million to stop this initiative that made them ask permission before they raised their rates, and that made sure that people were charged based on how they drive, not where they live, not their zip code, and they lost. And Prop 103 passed with like $1 million for it, $80 million against it, 51% of the vote. And we just had a 30-year study from the Consumer Federation of America, not our group, but friends of ours, about how much the savings were just for drivers under Prop 103, this tough regulation. $154 billion saved over 30 years. If you looked at projection of rates that were going up like 11% a year in 1988, we have had flat auto insurance rates for the last 30 years because the companies have to ask permission. Elected commissioners, and the elected commissioner office was made elected by Prop 103, they don't like to raise rates because they don't get elected. So we've done that, and we're still the only state in America, unfortunately, that doesn't allow charging based on zip code. Every state should stop zip code-based auto insurance because it redlines certain people. So that was the model.
Do you ever fear for your life? I mean,
well, it's interesting.
I mean, saying it half joking, tongue in cheek. But.
Well, okay. So the most recent time was we just did a report about a month ago about recycling scams in California, where we put in a lot of money to the recycling program in California, and we're only getting every nickel or dime. It adds up, and we can't get those redemptions. So overall, we're losing about $700 million a year, and it's because instead of having redemption centers and grocery stores, the curbside haulers, you throw your trash in that blue can and you think it gets to the right place. They take your redemption money, and oftentimes it goes to the landfill. So we blew the whistle on this industry, and right after this, we had some good press on it. We got an Associated Press story. I started getting phone calls all morning of literally garbage trucks backing up on my cell phone for maybe 3 or 4 hours. Wow. And it was the garbage haulers, and there were calls from burner phones all across America. Basically, keep going on this. We're going to back.
Thank God Tony Soprano's not around.
You don't want to mess with the garbage people.
Well, it's
a dirty business, right?
Well, I thought we were going to get a Murat joke. He's from Jersey, up there, North Jersey. I mean, come on.
Well, Izzy is still around though. We never know.
So
he reached for the onion rings, and that was it.
So it was fun though, because then when we did some press on it, we mentioned that, and the call stopped. So sunlight is the best disinfectant, as Judge Brandeis said, both in the courts and in society.
Well, it seems like the message seems to be so easy for consumers that are actually educated on it, but when you're getting outspent, literally 80-1, I mean, it's sometimes hard.
Yeah, and that initiative had a 20% rollback in people's auto insurance rates, and it's still only passed by 51%.
Wow.
So these things are hard. We did HMO reform in the 90s, lost at the ballot with measures, but then the governor signed the reforms we had at the ballot a couple years later. These things have a way of coming around. When you're right, you often win. It may take an extra 10 years, but it happens.
So we're going to dovetail that into our next topic. We're going to talk about specific things here in California, and Nick, I'm going to turn the pulpit to you and to Courtney to talk a little bit about this issue. First, we have an issue called here MICRA. Can you explain for our listeners what MICRA is? And then I want you, Courtney, to kind of educate us on what you've seen across the country, because most of my practice is here in California, but you've seen things across the nation. So can you give us a little bit of snapshot? And you were just on the cover of the Daily Journal for your fight, so I want you to tell the listeners what's going on and why it's important.
If it's okay, and just really quick, that man right there is one of the most beautiful, passionate human beings I've ever met in my life. I'm just blown away by Jamie and what I'm about to talk about and what we're going to do. It's not what we're trying to do, what we are going to do wouldn't even be a possibility without Consumer Watchdog. It's without Jamie and his passion and his
Can we
experience.
get an applause over there, Timmy, for Jamie? Maybe like a woo or like a...
He's that big of a deal. His organization is that big of a deal. And having him on the side of the patients, not our side, not my side, not your side, but the side of patients and patient rights and civil justice is so huge. It's huge. So, MICRA, I'm going to make it a little personal. Okay? And you have kids?
Yeah, Jamie and I actually, we shared this before we came on. We both have adopted our children, and his boys are teenagers now. I mean, how old now?
12 and 15.
Wow. Yeah, mine's too. So
I want you to consider something for a moment. It's horrible. It's horrible. But consider that you take your kids in to the hospital. Just pick one of them. And you go into the hospital, and your child is allergic to penicillin or allergic to something else. And it's on the medical chart. You let the doctors know. You let the nurses know. And somehow, that medicine that your child is allergic to gets put into his or her body. And his or her heart stops beating. And then nobody pays attention the way they should, and they don't resuscitate your son, your baby girl. And either that child dies. Let's just take that for a moment. Your child dies. In the great state of California, because of this law that was passed in 1975 called MICRA, it's only worth $250,000. But not just $250,000, because you got to prosecute that case now. And the insurance companies, because it is, let there be no mistake, it is the insurance companies that have control over the decisions in every case. It is not the doctor. It is not the hospital. It is not the medical group. It is not the nurse. It's the insurance company. And they're going to fight. They're going to say, why are we going to pay you $250,000 if that's the most we'll ever have to pay? As negligent as our insured policy holder might have been, $250,000 is all you will ever get. So we will not offer you that money. You have to go get a lawyer. You have to spend money in costs. The lawyer's fees are set by statute. So the lawyer's fees actually end up taking a good chunk of that $250,000 because they're set. Lawyers get automatically 40% of the first $50,000. And then 33 1/3 of the next $50,000 and 25% after that, up to $600, but $600 doesn't even apply with these 250 cases, which are the majority of medical malpractice cases, whether it be a child, whether it be a stay-at-home mom, whether it be your dad who's now retired or in a nursing home or elderly. The people, the victims of medical malpractice, these are $250,000 soaking wet cases, which after attorney's fees, that's about $150,000 in justice to the victims because of something passed in 1975. It's horrific. It's horrific, and that is why medical negligence is the third leading cause of death in this state. It's so bad. So let's imagine that your child, your young boy, doesn't die. He's just brain damaged. And for the rest of his life, he will not walk, he will not talk, he will not feed himself, he will never get married, he'll never have a job, he'll never go to college, but he's going to live in that body that doesn't really work because his heart still beats and he can still breathe and he can still process food. So he's just going to just grow up and be basically maybe a 3 or 4-year-old forever. Forever. His loss of enjoyment of life, his pain, his suffering, his emotional distress, her pain, her suffering, her emotional distress, her loss of enjoyment of life, having to live in that body, that brain-damaged body that will never work. And there are thousands and thousands of these cases that I'm talking about. It isn't just one or two. Thousands since 1975. Tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands of malpractice victims. But tens of thousands of cases like this. $250,000 is all that little human being is entitled to for life. For life. And after attorney's fees, $150,000. Now they say, well, economic damages, those aren't capped, right? Oh, sure they are. Sure they are by MICRA, because what you have is periodic payments. Means that even if the jury comes back and says, well, that's a $20 million economic damages case, well, the insurance company gets to say, hey, we get to buy an annuity and pay each year and see if that person lives or dies. We never have to pay full justice. And then economic damages, oh no. Medical bills, no, because the collateral source rule does not apply in medical negligence cases because of MICRA, because of 1975 and what the legislature and the governor did after they were bamboozled and bought and paid for by these insurance companies and their lobbyists, this bad law that they passed. The economic damages never get paid because the insurance company for the negligent defendant gets to say, you know what? Those medical bills get paid by insurance. They get paid by Obamacare. The state, pays for it. Medicare, you name it. So they get to chisel all those down. And as a result, there is no accountability. Now, one might say, well, this cap was put into place, back in 1975 because there was a healthcare, there was a crisis. That is a bold-faced, 100% insurance company lie propaganda.
So when they come in and they say, hey, well, it's going to affect the rates or insurance rates of our doctors.
That's what they did. That's what they did.
I mean, this is the propaganda that's pushed out. So
that's how they got it passed.
Can we debunk that right now? I mean,
the easiest way to say half the states don't have caps. If you get medical care in New York,
Illinois.
I mean, why is New
Washington,
York the healthcare costs are higher
Oklahoma.
in California than they are in New York, and we have a cap and they don't. So you look at that's the simple math, but also you can show that malpractice costs as a percentage of healthcare costs, according to the Congressional Budget Office, 0.5%. All costs. That's claims and premiums. So it just doesn't add up. So then they throw in something else, defensive medicine. Oh yeah, we know that's true. That's the truth. We can't. But because you fear a lawsuit and you're a doctor, that means you're going to give better care to your patients.
Like defensive driving.
What's the
I was
matter
We
with
should
that?
practice it every day.
Yeah,
the matter with that?
that's what
Right?
we teach our teenagers.
But the rates in these states with no caps,
Fear.
the insurance rates are less. California with the cap since 1975 has the highest rates in the country. It is such a lie.
Well, it's interesting because medical malpractice insurance rates in California are regulated under Proposition 103.
Now they are.
And so there have been a bunch of cases we got involved in because under this law we passed in 88, if you want, you can intervene and say, I don't want this rate hike to go ahead because they don't deserve it. And so we do that, and that's how we keep rates low. We did it on about 3 different medical malpractice insurance rate applications, and we stopped them for the doctors
Every
just to
time.
show that rate regulation can work if the doctors bother to exercise their rights to do it.
So if the insurance companies come in after this, and they're going to tell their doctors, they're going to tell the California Medical Association, they're going to say, this is going to raise your rates. It's a lie. It's a fear tactic, and fear tactics work. But guess who they're going to have? Guess who the CMA, guess who the doctors, guess who the nurses, the hospitals are going to have to protect them from these insurance companies if they even dare try to raise their rates because they're regulated in the state of California. Guess who they're going to have to stand up for and protect them, to shut it down, just like they successfully have every single time as Consumer Watchdog and Jamie. That's who will stand up for
and
them.
our elected insurance commissioner,
right.
who allegedly was at a meeting in Sacramento last week where he said it's time for the MICRA cap to go.
That's right.
Told about 200 lawyers.
Well,
it's just crazy.
So whenever you tell it this way, now the average consumer doesn't even know that it's capped at $250,000.
Neither do the jurors, though.
Yes.
I mean, let's talk about that.
And what have you seen about that?
Well, along with the legislation, there are court rules, which means that the jurors who are making these decisions about people, the jurors who are invested and believe they are deciding justice, because that's what they're told, are not being told that their eventual verdict is either going to be capped or reduced by the judge afterwards. They have no idea what game they are involuntarily participating in.
The law says we lie to them. We don't get to tell them. The law lies to them, lies to our jurors who go in there, take an oath, show up for jury duty. They're lied to as a matter of law because that's what the insurance companies and lobbyists, that's what they got done. We get to lie to juries. We have to lie to juries.
And they don't even tell them, hey, whenever you do get these economic damages, we're going to try to reduce them to Medicare rates or Medi-Cal rates.
Right.
And then periodicize them.
Yeah, and then a lot of doctors opt out of Medicare or Medi-Cal, and you're not even getting the best medical care for those people.
Well, and now they're referring to Obamacare, which, look, Obamacare just came under fire, a few months ago, right? We don't know what system's going to be in place 6, 12, 18 months from now. And yet the insurance companies get the benefit of making the bet on that at the lowest cost to them, not to the highest benefit to the patient.
And what it's watered down, really briefly, is that there are very few talented young trial lawyers doing medical malpractice in California. And what is the reason?
That, I think, is the most important point,
Nick,
is that this becomes
That's
prohibitive.
an overstatement. You said very, very few. That's an overstatement. It's actually next to none.
Yeah.
It's next to none. Nobody in their right mind would do this work.
So if you lose a baby or child in your circumstance, the actual reality is you get zero because you get no attorney, because no attorney is going to take your case when the maximum they can get is $250,000. If a baby dies, if a senior dies, that's it. There's no economic cost. There's no dependence. There's no medical bills. That is it. So for 42 years, by not adjusting this for inflation, it would bring the cap up to about $1.1 million. We've basically stopped legal deterrence. And that's why you have these scandals like USC, where you got this OBGYN, sexually abusing hundreds of women and never being put out of business. And why? Because no one ever gets to sue them, because if they went to an attorney, the attorney wouldn't ever take that pain and suffering case.
Yes,
and the
sir.
medical board doesn't protect the public. The doctor-run medical board protects the doctors, not the patients.
And let's talk about the population that we are marginalizing. I mean, if you just kind of take it down a notch out of the statistics, what we're talking about, because look, the truth is, yes, I will take your case if you're an anesthesiologist or a plastic surgeon, because yes, you do have economic damages. And now it's actually worth my time and investment, because as plaintiffs' lawyers, obviously, we invest all the costs at the front end. We only get paid if we win, right? However, if you're a single mother, an elderly person, a baby, a child, or people that don't make as much, you work at a regular old job, maybe you're a paralegal or a secretary, generally women, right? Women, minorities. And so I think we could just kind of take this thing out of the legalese for a second and talk about, like, this doesn't line up with our values as Americans, no matter what political side you line up on. This is a corporate devised way, yet again, of marginalizing women, children, minorities, elderly, the most vulnerable populations in our country.
So I have a question.
And those are also the people who face the worst medical care.
Exactly,
Because
sir.
the quality of medical care and whether you're likely to be a victim of medical negligence, the biggest indicator is how much money is spent in your care. So you're less likely at Cedars-Sinai than you are at King Drew.
County Hospital.
And then you can't find an attorney because you don't have the damages because you're not a high wage earner. So we lock them out of the good medicine and we lock them out of access to justice. And this legislature, which is run by a Latino man in the assembly and by a woman who is LBGQ in the Senate and who cares about minority communities, understands that women and minorities are at risk, and they should do something about this. Unfortunately, they haven't, and they don't do it because there's a lot of money, and we have to find a way to make them do it.
So they lack the courage and integrity, okay? They lack the courage and integrity. This is such, if we can't deal with this issue, then we can't deal with anything else. And our whole political system is bullshit. And our political system has done nothing, absolutely nothing, in over 40 years with respect to this cap, despite every politician knowing that MICRA was based on bold-faced lies. So the judges have no courage because they could have changed it.
So then how do we, for our listeners out there that are now more educated if they weren't already, how are people able to help undo what has been done?
First of all, what they need to do is check within themselves and find their integrity. If you're a medical provider, if you're a doctor, if you're a nurse, if you sell insurance, look inside of yourself and find your integrity. And ask yourself the question, find your most loved human, the most loved human in your life. Are they only worth $250,000? Is the value of love, companionship, enjoyment of life in a body that doesn't work, or a person who's negligently killed, is that only worth $250,000? Absolutely not. That would be a horrific injustice. Do you trust juries and judicial review on a case-by-case basis, or do you want to trust politicians? So what we have to do as human beings is ask ourselves whether we trust our jury system, whether we believe in the Constitution, whether we believe in civil rights, or if we're willing to hand that all over to politicians, corporate American insurance companies. And if you're a big, president or CEO at an insurance company, check in with yourself. Look at your loved one.
So are there other states or other things that have happened where they've had these caps and they've been lifted? People have come and realized the light. Have we seen that yet?
There is a wave of grace passing across America, Bob Simon.
Well, tell us about it.
The spirit is moving. Tell him, Nick. You're so excited about Oklahoma. We've been spending a lot of Oklahoma time. Really? We're big fans of the Tulsa.
So last year,
Sooners.
Before you get into that, can I ask a question?
Or...
So when the two of you are trying a medical malpractice case in California, where you have the cap, ultimately you're going to, whatever award you get for the general damages, it's going to be reduced to $250.
Yeah.
So how much time do you spend on that? Because I know, Nick, you are one of the most passionate speakers when you're talking about human suffering and the trial by human. How much time do you spend on that? Because at the end, it's going to be reduced anyway. Is there still value in dealing with that at trial when you're? Does it reflect economic damages at all? Does it help you sell economic damages?
No. So you asked me at the beginning, and I don't like to brag about my trial record. I don't, unless we're just all alone and we've been drinking and you do the same thing, because your results are stellar. I'm so proud of you. It's and what this law firm has been doing.
Well, let me. So I met Nick Rowley for the first time in Santa Monica Courthouse about 10 years ago. Seeing him wearing those black cowboy boots, walking through the metal detector first, like, who is that guy, right? And I was trying a case with my brother. This was 10 years ago, and I was about to do closing, and Nick Rowley's out in the courtyard. He's trying a case upstairs out in the annex, and we just got to talking, and known him ever since. Gave me great guidance right there. That was still the only case I ever lost, but I got some good insight. Haven't lost since that trial, but
no way.
Yeah, no, I swear to God,
Good
I
job.
did lose one other time. Got overturned. So
There you go. That doesn't count.
they cheated. Still got
right.
it. Well, actually, yeah, overturned. So
That's
we were
great.
good to go, and then resolved. But yeah, first time I ever met Nick Rowley, that was the story, and I didn't even know who he was. Skyrocketed, and I think you had the largest verdict in. What county was that one? The medical malpractice one. I think the largest one I've ever heard, 50 million or something, 40 some.
74.6.
Sorry, didn't mean to sell you short. But humble brag.
But that was in San Luis Obispo, a place where someone said a medical malpractice case could never be won. I got called in on the case a couple of weeks before trial for this beautiful girl named Sophia Blunt. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful little girl, trapped in a body that will never, ever work. And we went in, we tried that case, and that case ended up getting reduced. But you asked your question, getting back to your question. So I've tried cases all over the country. I've been litigated cases in half of the states. I continue. I mean, I just finished a trial run of 14 jury trials in 15 months from the Midwest up to Alaska, down the West Coast. I mean, all over. And Courtney tried those cases with me. I mean, we
took a lot of vitamins.
yeah.
A lot of prenatals.
Nick takes prenatals. That's why his
that
hair's so
That's good
lush.
for your name. A lot, yeah. It's good
When
for
I
your
talked about, I said I don't win all my cases. I try my best. And if we're doing our best, we're doing our best, and we're living in the moment, and we're loving that human being who we're there to represent, and we're loving that jury, then we are winning. But I have had some losses, and I consider a case where we go to trial on a medical malpractice case, and then that gets reduced afterwards. I consider that a loss. It's devastating for those human beings, those victims of negligence, those family members, those kids, those children, to have that all reduced, and at the end of the day, they're left with nothing, really scraps, not enough to survive on, not enough to get by. And when we try cases, we put in our all, no matter what. It's tough, it's draining, but if I'm trying a case, or Courtney's trying a case in Iowa, we're going to try it just as hard as we are in California. And fortunately, we've had enough success to where we can afford. We are one of the very, very few, we are the only trial couple that I know of who will take these cases not for money. And what we're doing, changing this cap, getting rid of it. And it's not adjusting it to inflation. It's not adjusting it to inflation because, and this is important, the politicians need to understand this. Oh, okay, we'll adjust it to inflation. No, it was never right to begin with. What we did in Iowa, we fought it last year. And Iowa got a cap, a $250,000 cap placed just for cases, medical negligence cases, to deal with the doctor's concerns that, frivolous cases aren't going to be pursued. They're going to be capped out. Cases that do not involve death, serious injury or disfigurement that's permanent, okay, injuries to children that are permanent, then the jurors answer a question. And the jurors get to decide whether there's a cap or not by answering that question. And the judge gets to decide on a case-by-case basis. So that's fine. And that's the same cap they have in Massachusetts, where it can get adjusted to inflation here in California. But then there are cases, certain cases, like when you're dealing with a kid with quadriplegia or cerebral palsy or serious brain injury, where the jury gets to decide, the judge gets to decide that, the cap doesn't apply here. The justice should be more. And that's what should exist. I'm fine with that. That's okay.
Well, I think one of the biggest insults is not just to the families, which are obviously devastated, but to the entire jury system. Because juries make their awards and they are in the dark, and literally they leave the room, and when they leave the room and their service is done and they thought they've served justice, what happens? The judge behind their back applies a one-size-fits-all cap from the legislature, said, no, we're not listening to you, $250,000. And there's one case that really got to me. It was in the 90s, was one of my first. Ralph Nader had asked us to look into medical negligence, and I came across a family who had a 3-year-old. And when he was 2, fell on a stick in the woods, impaled his sinus. It was a pretty bad head injury. They took him to the ER, and it was basically HMO medicine time. HMOs didn't want to pay for anything, so they sent him home without doing a CAT scan.
What?
And then he came back. Mom said something's wrong. Pumped him up with steroids. Didn't want to do this $800 CAT scan. When he came back again, he's comatose. Today, he's got cerebral palsy, he's blind, he's brain damaged. In that trial, they proved, beyond any doubt, that if he had gotten that scan, $800 scan, he'd be normal, he'd be fine, he'd have his eyesight. Beautiful baby boy. Well, it didn't happen that way, so they awarded $7 million for the kid's pain and suffering.
Loss of enjoyment of life.
Right, all of that. Plus,
disfigurement.
And this was in the 90s, right? And maybe $1.5 million or something for economics. Just $1.5 million. So walk out of the room. They reduce the award to $250,000, and the jury foreman reads about it in the newspaper, is incensed, is outraged, right? So if we had known, we would have calculated the economics a lot differently.
Wow.
And so Stephen Olson's the kid's name, and it gets worse. And so I've been doing this for so many years largely because of Stephen, who's 26 now. Beautiful kid, wonderful child, but will never be married, will never live independently. His mom had to quit her job, Kathy, who's a good friend of mine, and she took off from her job and helped Stephen. And they had a great family, Scott, Stephen, Kathy. Unfortunately, she died 2 years ago at 59.
Wow.
And
from exhaustion.
Well, from cancer, unfortunately,
Yeah,
but actually from the chemo, not the cancer. She was beating it, and they really had a great family. But then when she died, the father, Scott, had to quit his job to take care of Stephen, and that's where they are today, without the money that they should have had. Literally,
that would have been paid
23
by,
years ago.
That would have been paid by whom? Not the doctors, not the hospital.
By the insurance company.
By the insurance company.
And probably the hospital's insurance company.
But insurance company.
That's what it's there for.
That's right.
And so this family, they're wonderful people. Scott is going to be at our Rage for Justice dinner, and Stephen usually comes, and Kathy Olson is on our Hall of Fame. But I'll tell you this, it's families like the Olsons that remind you when they say, it's really all about, intangible damages or pain. No, that's not true. When you give money to people who are being injured, they're going to need it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not now, maybe 20 years from now. And it's the right of the juries to make those decisions without anyone tying their hands. And so at very least, the jury should know about a cap. We should never have a cap of any kind without telling a jury.
Our civil justice system in the state of California, because of this law, perpetuates and inflicts a fraud upon every jury in a medical negligence case, and it's been going on for 43 years. Fraud upon our juries. A justice system that is based on something that's fraudulent is not justice. It's an injustice. It's horrific. Doctors out there, medical institutions need to understand this is not going to hurt you. It is not. The insurance companies are not going to be able to raise their rates. And when it comes to the bad cases out there, having justice for those cases improves the quality of medicine for everybody, and in terms of the costs in our healthcare system, right? I mean, it costs a lot, right, to provide healthcare. This is actually going to reduce healthcare costs by completely getting rid of this cap, because it won't be the medical institutions that have to take patients who walk in the door as a matter of law, right? Or the county hospitals or Medicare or Obamacare, right? Well, it's the Affordable Health Care Act. And in our states, people get health care if they walk into a hospital. And if you are a victim of medical negligence and you go in and you need care every week, every month, every year, and you don't have the resources for it, you're going to get it. Guess who pays for that? All of us, including the doctors, the nurses, all the healthcare professionals. You know who's not paying for it because of this law? The medical negligence insurance companies who are making billions and billions and billions of dollars every year in profit, who continued to raise their rates at a record. I mean, their rates went up higher and higher than they ever had after MICRA was passed. So the whole thing that, okay, if we put this cap on damages in 1975, well, that's going to, really calm down insurance rates. Lie, absolutely untrue. And the evidence in history shows it. The one thing that actually stopped insurance rates from going up is
rate regulation.
Rate regulation, and folks like Consumer Watchdog.
And I also say that when eyes light up on this issue, this last word for me on this, is because what the politicians are starting to realize in Sacramento, what the governor's realizing, his eyes lit up when I told him this, is, you know what? We're spending tens of billions, literally, in healthcare costs in the system to care for medical negligence injuries that the wrongdoer should be paying for. Tens of billions of dollars extra and added healthcare costs. That's statistically true. And we've got to stop that. It's going to save a lot of money if we can straighten this out.
Yes. So if we want to, we're going to transitional topics here, but if everyone wants to get involved, contact the Rowleys, contact Consumer Watchdog. There's things you could do, little practical things to be able to help.
Contact your governor. Contact every politician in this state. Gavin Newsom called me up before he actually announced. Sat down with me one-on-one. Great man. He's a great man. He's a great governor. He's the best that we've had in a very, very long time. And we have a lot of great people in the assembly and the state legislature. We really do. And I told him, I said, there's one thing that you got to change when you become governor. There's one thing you got to stand up for. And it's not about attorneys' fees. It's not about money for lawyers. This is about people. This is about human rights. This is civil justice. And this is about children who are victims of medical negligence. This is about minorities. This is about people who don't have the money for good health care, who are victims of medical negligence. It's the cap on non-economic damages. It's got to go. And he looked me in the eye and he goes, I absolutely agree. It's a horrible injustice. And the thing is, since he's taken office, he hasn't done a damn thing about it. And every politician you talk to, you tell them, and they look at it and they go, you're right, that's wrong. It's a horrible injustice. They all own it. But they're not doing anything about it. They're not. He hasn't done anything about it. They're not doing anything about it. And why? Why? What are they so afraid of? They need to search within themselves and find their integrity and do something about it.
And you asked Bob what we can do. And the truth is Jamie can only do so much, right? Yep. He can only give us the layup. We have to slam the ball in. And that's called voting. And we have to get excited again about that. These presidential votes and the bigger ones, and I'm talking to the younger people out there, they're very exciting and sexy, and there's pantsuits and there's, hair and there's little hands and big hands and all sorts of fun things going on. But what matters is what's going on in our own communities. And that's where we can actually have the greatest impact, right? And so when Jamie and his organization and people like Nick and other lawyers like you guys get together and raise the money and do the thing and get the thing on the ballot, there's one huge move that everyone can participate in. But it takes getting out there and physically going and doing the damn thing.
United Front.
That is what's beautiful about this state, is if the politicians and the governor who say the things that I think they, when he looked me in the eye and he said it's an injustice, it's got to change, it's got to go. I believe him, and I believed him, and I believe that's what he knows in his heart and gut now. But when they can't find the courage to then get it done, the great thing about the state of California is that we have a way to get it done. The people can get it done. The people can get anything done in this state because of these ballot measures. And these ballot measures, they're not there for corporations and insurance companies. These ballot measures exist for the people. And that's why we're going to get this on the ballot in 2020. And the people are going to stand up because they will know the truth, and it's going to change and it's going to go away. If in the meantime, the governor and the legislature want to find the courage and integrity to do something about it, great. Then maybe we won't have to decide.
It's funny, the consumers, they could be tricked by being spent 80-1
Right.
with propaganda.
Absolutely.
But those politicians, they know the no. They better walk the
and
walk.
even the ones who are actually have taken a lot of money from the medical establishment and the insurance companies, we meet with them. We meet with them with patience. We have patience in a lot of these districts. And you know what they say? I do know it's time has changed. I do think it should change. Here's what we're dealing with. All these people who give a lot of money to the parties, to the leaders, and what they win with that money is silence. The bills don't get out of committee, or they get on a suspense committee and the appropriations committee. But even the ones who are with, literally, just like, I can't say publicly I'm for changing MICRA, but I know it's the right thing to do. And when you're at an issue like this and you're at a place like that, that's when a ballot measure is really important. And we had a good example. We're going to celebrate this at the Rage for Justice Awards on Saturday the 18th. And it's basically privacy. We had an initiative last year done by a guy named Alistair McTaggart that said, look, Facebook's too big, Google's too big. We need to know what data they have about us. We need to be able to say no to the collection of that data, and we need to sue them when they lose it, when there's a data breach. Simple as that. Well, it was such a powerful idea that Google and Facebook, after Cambridge Analytica, agreed to back down, and on the last day to withdraw the ballot measure, which was June 28th, they passed in the Assembly and the Senate on the same day, and the governor signed on the same day, a measure giving people the right to sue for data breaches and stop the collection of their own data. And it's going to be law in January, and the initiative was withdrawn at 5 p.m. That can happen in California when everybody realizes it's in our interest to work together because something's wrong. If that initiative had gone to the ballot, not only would it have won, but the way we think about Facebook and Google would be totally different, and Facebook and Google knew that, and they didn't want to deal with it.
Politicians in this state and the governor are all going to have an opportunity to speak about this and to answer with brutal honesty, not the influence from the lobbyists.
California is supposed to be at the forefront of helping out the lower socioeconomic people, right? To help out those people that have less than we do. But why are we so far behind other, even conservative, we think of conservative states?
Because of this. But it's the money. It's the money. This is the thing, is if you are a politician, if you are Governor Newsom, right, who I adore and who I have high hopes for, if you're Governor Newsom and you know that that deciding something this way is the right thing to do, but you can't say it publicly because, you know what, that might affect my reelection. That might affect my next move. If you're a politician, an assembly person, a state senator, I know that making this decision and making this change is the right thing to do for the people of California, but I'm not going to say it because that might affect my reelection, or I may not get money from this group. That politician needs to go because they are violating their oath secretly in their own mind, right? That is a dishonest politician who does not have the integrity and should not be representing the public in this state or anywhere. We need to have our politicians start doing what's right because it's right, not because they're worried about what money they're going to get in the next election cycle or next week because they're already raising money, right? That's what they have to do. That's our system. So we need politicians who are going to do what's right because it's right, not just sit there and be quiet and let people, human beings, get steamrolled, for 40 years. That's what's going on here. And every human being needs to ask themselves, every politician, anybody who's going to come out with some bullshit, excuse my language, some lies. See, first.
No, it's the second one. You get one more. It's a PG-13 movie.
Okay.
Who's going to punch you in the stomach?
Who's going to get out there, right? And say, you know what? Getting rid of the cap. It's bad, and here's the reasons why. Those are lies. That human being needs to look in the mirror, needs to look within him or herself and say, what's my closest loved one or my life worth?
So we do know that Governor Newsom he's downloaded our podcast, but only the ones with Mauro Fiore on them. So.
I was going to say, this sounds like Politics by Human. I love Politics by Human is the next
brutal politics
and brutal honesty and brutal honesty.
And I'll tell you,
ask every politician.
We need that in California. But what will happen? I will tell you when this issue moves forward is we have a patient who's been injured by medical negligence and survived MICRA in every Senate district in the state of California, and any politician who votes on this issue is going to have to look their constituent in the eye, hear their story, like the woman at the Rage for Justice Center who's going to talk about being a triple amputee and only getting $250,000 for very clear medical negligence. They're going to have to look at them in the eye and say, no, I'm voting with these guys, the white coats and the insurance companies, and not you and your family. And they won't be a politician for long if they actually have to do that. So ultimately, all politics is local. And for people who are listening and know someone who's a medical negligence survivor, maybe themselves, come forward, go out to consumerwatchdog.org, tell your story, get in touch with the people who represent you or supposed to represent you, because when that happens, I can tell you what happens. I've been there. They will say, Nick, look, to the medical association, I would be with you, but I have to be with them. I'm going to lose. This is my job. And when we present them with that choice, they will have to make the right choice, the moral choice, the human choice.
There's one thing that's important here. There is another place where this could be changed. And all it would take is one judge. One judge. Mm-hmm. One judge in the state of California with courage and integrity. And it, so much his if you look back at civil rights and civil justice.
Well, haven't other states, they've got up the Supreme Court?
I'm going to get to that. It's been one judge who stood up and said, you know what? No. Segregation is wrong. No. We're not, gonna say that this color of human can't be on a bus or at the front of a bus versus another. It's human beings, judges that have said, no, that restriction on the right to choice is wrong. And we can go on and on and on where it's been one judge who had the courage and integrity to stand up against all the injustice that's going on. And one judge in the state of California could look at a case and say, we now have 43 years of evidence. We have evidence based upon testimony to Congress. We have it right here, and I am the judge who's going to say there was never a rational basis for this law to have been passed, for this cap to be put and this injustice to be inflicted upon medical negligence victims. For the past 40 years, it's been wrong, and here's the evidence. And I'm going to say that it's invalid. And then it would be the Court of Appeal that could say, do I agree with that judge? But it's got to start with one judge. And our California Supreme Court, then it goes to them. And they'll have the choice to look at the evidence and look within themselves, because they are all human beings, and their integrity, and make the moral decision about what's right. The courts could change that, and we are fighting in the courts to get that done. And all we need is one judge with the courage and integrity to tell the truth about this. Because if you look at the law and the way it's been challenged in the state of California and what it's been based upon, when they've upheld this cap, it's because there's been a lack of evidence, really. No one's ever had the evidence, but we now have 40 plus years of evidence to show that this was, something that was based on insurance company lies and bamboozling politicians, or, convincing politicians back in 1975.
For those who aren't watching, he's doing money signs. Money.
Kind of like a Kim Kardashian.
Straight cash money. Yeah.
The state of Oklahoma, the Supreme Court in the conservative state of Oklahoma just came out and said, caps on damages are absolutely wrong. Yeah. We have this thing. We have this thing that our state is founded upon, called a constitution. Did you know that California has one of those too? It does. California has a constitution too. Well, the state of Oklahoma, where you get God bless everyone in Oklahoma. Right? I'm doing cases there. Great folks there.
I think you say bless their hearts. That's
bless their hearts. Bless their hearts. Oklahoma is not as progressive as California. It's not as liberal as California. But yet those folks have core values that they adhere to, that they stay true to. And the Oklahoma Supreme Court said the moment these caps are wrong, and the reason why is when you have caps, you're giving one group, like an insurance company, big corporation, power over others, power over the little people, the minorities, those who can't stand up for themselves. So when you have this cap in place, it's wrong, it's an injustice. And the one thing that we have that balances it out, that will put a corporation, an insurance company with all its power and might on equal footing, or bring that person up to equal footing, that one human being, is the jury system. And the moment that the people of the state of Oklahoma believe that the jury system and judicial review isn't good enough to decide a civil case, then the people of the state of Oklahoma can amend the Constitution, because
That's what the court
caps
said.
on damages are unconstitutional.
That's politics
That
by
just
human
happened.
from Nick Rowley. Politics by human.
And it's a beautiful thing. And state after state after state has done that. And hopefully
Except
the
for
U.S.
California.
Supreme Court will have the integrity and courage to do it too. But we'll see.
We'll see. So one of our partners here is we do have Trial Guides as one of our partners, and our listeners do get a discount by using Justice Team 19. Justice Team 19, and listeners get a 15% off of the Trial Guides books. But we have two authors here from Trial Guides, and we only have a little bit of time left, so I want to talk about the books that you guys have written that you've come out with. You've done one together, The Running with the Bulls.
Running with the Bulls, and the one we're working on now, and then
So we have Trial by Woman.
Yep.
We have Trial by Human.
Yes.
And what are you guys coming out with?
Running with the Bulls just came out, which
Yeah.
is a book about getting civil justice.
It's badass.
It's something that
We were reading
the
it
lawyers-
actually this weekend. Morrow had your book. We were going through it.
Yeah.
Morrow's one of the co-authors.
Yeah.
He wrote a phenomenal chapter. So,
But if you're just, if you're just looking to turn over cases, and you're running your business, this increases the value of your cases and what your clients get, which ends up raising the value of cases overall.
and it's something
right?
that that a person
For consumers.
who decides not to go with a lawyer, who decides to represent themselves and make their own claim, and there are a lot of those folks out there. Running with the Bulls is for them too.
And I'm a Taurus, so it's for me.
That's for you.
Running
You
with
are
the
a bull.
Jamies.
And then Trial by Woman, Courtney wrote with Teresa Bowen, her partner, Bowen Hatch. It is a phenomenal book that I think is changing the landscape for women,
Yeah,
not
'cause
only lawyers, but professionals.
Courtney, you've tried cases while, you were breastfeeding your children, right?
Yeah.
You
In
guys
fact,
had an 8-figure verdict and were a
I've got
very
a pretty
conservative
solid
part of
opinion that says I was literally breastfeeding during my opening, which is insane, but whatever. But now I'm embracing it now. Yes, I breastfeed. I run around court. Yeah.
And so what are some of the issues that you've been able to that you think you can change or be a champion of, and how are the tides turning for women in the courtroom in general?
Well, I don't know that it's just women. I think it's this wonderful wave of new lawyers that are talking about the issues. Look at this. We're sitting on velvet couches and drinking whiskey. The royal we, of course, not I.
Royal we, yeah.
But come on, this is interesting. And we're talking about caps, and we've got Jamie in the room, right? Like, this is very different from how it has been done. You have this incredible setup where you actually pay people what they deserve. They get to eat what they kill, per se. We haven't moved too far away from the masculine vernacular of the practice, but goddamn, like, you're killing it, and you're making this practice better, which only serves the people we represent, right? And so by having women get more fired up about opening their own practices, just igniting creativity and kind of moving into a place where we can better serve the people we represent while remaining healthy and having lives and raising kids that aren't assholes, fingers crossed. And enjoying it at the same time, it sets an example. We're leaders. And I loved what you said at the beginning, Jamie, look, when you're right, it comes, and maybe it takes 10 years. We've lost, we have all of this onslaught of information coming at us, and so much every day, so much stimulation that it's hard to kind of sift through the pile of mess to kind of see what really matters here. And so, when we understand that good things do happen, and it takes commitment and patience, but it also takes valuing each other and valuing our sovereignty, and valuing women and valuing all these other kinds of people, and that diversity is where the creativity comes from.
And I
it
enjoy,
just makes practice more enjoyable.
It makes it more enjoyable, and I'll let you learn so much. A lot of my trial partners come from other socioeconomic backgrounds, they're other genders, and you see things from a different perspective that,
Yes.
I wouldn't have thought of, and it just, I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you're staying in the old white man mentality, and that's
Fat white man.
Women can only, the first female, who was it, Claire, what's her name? The first woman that was able to practice law in California, or in general. That wasn't that long ago if you think about it. That's crazy.
No, it's pretty nuts. And when we started getting into statistics, 70% of women quit the practice of law within the first 3 years.
Wow.
Still today. And it's not because they go off and have babies or because, they fall into the knight's arms and go get and move into the castle. There's a lot of reasons for it, and it's because the structure of the practice of law has been so prohibitive to having a real life or living in a way that's respectable and, reflects your values and your integrity. you're changing that. Like, you guys with this setup, you're setting the example for how the practice could be and what it could look like. And that means you can kind of design it any way you want to.
A la carte. And I mean, Nick has a wonderful movement in general across the nation, Trial by Human. I'm part of the listserv. He has some of the greatest trial lawyers and trial minds and vision thinkers and visionaries all together on one platform to be able to talk about these issues and these things candidly, openly across the country to see what things are happening in other jurisdictions. You know, and you can join that movement. I encourage it, but it's very powerful. And at 41 years old, what Nick has done and what Nick and Courtney have done together is really revolutionizing what we're doing and what we're seeing across the nation. And with their help and hard work, I think we can have this change. You know, we can educate
We're
the people.
doing it. It's happening.
You know what?
We're doing it.
We're doing it.
I've got to bring something up because I'm sitting here, I'm stirring inside. This is such an important issue. Fidgeting. You have built, you and your brothers and your family, you came out here from Pennsylvania, and you started from nothing, and you have built one of the most powerful law firms in the state of California, which is going to go on to be one of the most powerful law firms in the country and in history. I see it. I've seen it in you.
Well, thank you.
But you don't do medical negligence cases in the state of California.
We do not.
And there's
why do you think that is?
There's a reason why.
Why?
There's a reason why, because you would go broke doing it.
Yeah.
I was a medic in the armed forces, 6 years.
Yeah.
I have the experience with medicine. I understand it. I know which cases are right to pursue, which cases are not. But for you to take all that hard work you're doing for people, phenomenal work that your firm is doing, changing the landscape, and now switch to doing medical negligence cases, it would break you guys. And you can't take those cases because of this cap.
And also because of the lack of education. So all of our lawyers are under 40 here. Nobody has had that experience of being around way back when MICRA was. Most of the trial lawyers that do medical malpractice were there before the cap.
But if you
Right.
started, hold on a minute. Hold on. This is it. This is what's key. Because we get asked the question, well, getting rid of this cap is all about attorney's fees, right? This is so I can get rich. You know what, man? When I started law school, I was still in the U.S. military. I lived in my car because my GI Bill hadn't kicked in and my military pay wasn't enough. I'd be happy to go. No problem going back to that if you don't take away my ability to live life and be happy and be free from pain, and you don't damage any of my children, right? I mean, our non-economic assets are really the most valuable things that we have. But if I go back in time and I look at everything that I've accomplished throughout the country, doing this good work, I make really, really good money, and I can put up the money for this fight. I can and I will. I am. But it's not about making the money, because I do these cases in other states where there aren't no caps. California, I do work here. I do a lot. I have a great firm here. But I don't need to get caps lifted in the state of California to make money or more money. I'm doing this because it's the right thing, and I'm doing this because if you and your great, powerful law firm, Bob, decided to call up those insurance companies and say, you know, we're going to do med mal defense now. We're going to take the Simon Law Group, and we want to be, that they would jump on it because of how phenomenal you are in the courtroom, how phenomenal your brothers, your partners, every one of your lawyers try cases and they win. They would swoop you up in that quick. And they'd say, all right, we'll give you all the cases you'll ever need. We'll pay you millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions, hundreds of millions over the course of to bring your firm in here and do this work. And you'd be able to do it because you would have, the corporations, the insurance companies backing. You'd have a limitless arsenal of funds. You would do it and you would succeed. Not if you're representing people.
Yeah,
and
wait
that's
a minute.
why
the defense lawyers don't have a cap. Is that what you're saying? It took me a minute there.
So that is where the access
That's
to
weird.
justice, it stopped existing the way that it was in 75, and it's gone down, down. And so that is why I ask you the question, and why I asked, and now you've told us. Why is it that such a great, great firm, the youngest, most successful upcoming firm in this country, doesn't handle these cases? Because it would be a bad business decision, and you would not get paid. There'd be caps. There'd be this. But these insurance defense lawyers, there's no cap on what they can make. They get to make millions on these cases to defend $250,000, and they do over and over and over again.
We're going to have everybody back here.
So let judges review attorneys' fees.
A year from now, after change has been done, and I'm going to ask Nick Rowley, 80 years from now when you die with your alligator blood, right? What do you want on your tombstone?
He made a difference.
I like that. Courtney, how about you? I've never asked this question. It's kind of morbid, but at the same time.
It's very morbid.
Yeah.
God.
That's why I said 80 years,
Yeah. I think it's about being good ancestors.
Yeah.
Not just baby makers, which, we're pretty good at. But being ancestors. She was good. She was a good ancestor.
I love that. Jamie, how about you?
I'm being cremated, man. What I do stands for itself, or it doesn't stand at all.
Be one of a kind. One of a kind.
Just don't go to Malibu and try to throw it off the cliff. We saw that one for the dude. Didn't go so well. Brandon, what do you want on your tombstone next year? We have a death poll here. He's on it. We got him.
If he dies, he dies. That's the second podcast in a row we've referenced Rocky IV. Is it
Rocky IV. You can never go wrong with Rocky IV.
All right, last set of questions because we got to get out of here. Jamie's got important meetings. I'm going to ask the Rowleys this question. We ask all of our trial lawyers here. Do you have any weird superstitions while you're in trial? Come on, you got to have something quirky.
Don't be cheap. Don't be cheap. Be generous. Give more than you take. If and I do.
How's that a superstition? I'm talking about wearing
no,
socks.
No, it translates. It translates. Shit gets weird.
No,
really.
If
Yeah.
So I was homeless as a kid at times, and when I see a person who's homeless, I'll stop and I'll go ask. I'll see if I can help them. If it looks like they're on drugs or something, I'll offer to buy them food. I'll spend some time with them and say, "Hold on, you need some money. You're asking for money. Why? What are you going to do with it?" And if it seems like they're a little, that they're going to take that and buy drugs or something, I'll say, hey, you want to go to a restaurant, and I'll buy them food. When I am in trial and I see, and there's a whole row of them, I help them all out. I'll take them all to dinner. I make sure someone calls me and asks me for something. I try to give as much as I can when I'm in trial to the universe, to the world, because I'm asking the jury to give justice to my client.
So let me know next time you're in trial. I have something to ask of you.
That's the one I can think of. So don't do anything bad. Don't litter when you're in trial. Like, oh no, man. And I don't litter anyways, but I'll pick litter up. It's like
I only pick up coins, heads up, these things, Courtney, how about you? Oh, yeah, I used to play baseball. It's bad.
Oh, no. So you've got plenty.
I got plenty.
Plenty to draw
I can't even
on. All
change
sorts
shampoos.
of neurosis. Oh,
how much did you just spend at the Kentucky Derby?
Don't worry about it. How about you, Courtney? Anything
I'm just rolling on high anxiety when I'm in it. And so I've got all the kids in the bed usually at night, and everybody's like slammed in next to each other so that I can kind of like pretend everything's okay. And then I wear, for the ladies out there, I wear extra highlighter on my cheeks because I'm convinced it makes people think I'm kind.
Wow. See, these little things are what our listeners like to tune
into. And I say, that's too much makeup, honey.
Yeah, I look like a freaking unicorn.
You need to wipe some of that off.
I look like a,
but yeah, the kids travel with us and they're in bed with us most of the time.
So we're out of town. We'd love to have you guys back to talk a little bit more about other issues. We love the consumer advocacy. Thanks, Jamie Court. Thanks for coming on. Very special guest. Hard to get. Yeah. Man that's spread very thin. Help him out. The Rowleys, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
We love you guys.
Inspiration to all of us. Thanks for listening. Thanks to our special guests. I'm your host, Robert Simon, and remember, no sleep till justice. Woo! We're gonna roll out with some more Regulator with the last two verses, I think.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
My new favorite song.
All Doc could do now was cry placebo. Now Doc's red and yelling. It's a tad bit late. Kept Doc and SLG had to regulate.
No justice, no sleep. Right? No justice, no sleep.
No sleep till justice.
Laid this expert down, let his mind explode. Now I'm in seek and destroy mode. Every other doctor in this case observed and said surgery decompressed the nerve. Now this doc is looking weak, and that's a known fact. He's sweating from his head down to his nutsack. Back up, cause it's on Concession City to Kev, Doc, and SLG. Just like I thought, the trauma is what put my client in need of desperate help. Surgery worked and the defense was in need of something else. Degenerative disc, doctor tried to sell. I said, ooh, I like your try. Pre-ax, did he have pain at any time? No evidence of that, it's going real swell. KC 3927, eggshell.